call the meeting to order and rise for the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
We need to approve the minutes from our last council commissioners workshop of September 18th.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Move for approval.
Second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, first up, Mr. Higginbotham.
Okay, you have your bi-weekly sheet in front of you and a couple of days since the last time you've seen it, as always. On the NX generator, all the parts for the generator change or addition have been delivered with the exception of the generator itself. It is in town. They're waiting to schedule a crane to have it brought in and set. The chamber technology, everything in the chamber, the original contract has been installed. And remember I told you that there would be one more invoice coming, and so that does show on here. And Beth, that was in your folder, I think, for
I
the
signed it a while
signature.
ago.
And so you have a balance of $221 left over in that project. Courthouse elevator study, and Jeff will refer to this a little bit more in detail, but that study's been completed, and as a result, we've had a presentation as to what potential solutions may be. And so that project will go away as well. The painting of the expo hall where they put the HVAC in, obviously that's been delayed because of the weather. I think we've got some pretty decent weather coming up in the next couple of days, and that should be done. The plaza project in front of the courthouse, bids are due on that to the commissioners on November 20th. And as always, once we receive those bids, we'll come back to you for discussion. The IT cabling project, the commissioners received the RFPs on that today, and Craig Eason will be reviewing those and bring a recommendation back to commissioners next week. And then the proxy card lock system was expected for tonight's meeting, but that has been pushed back till next week, so you won't see those until your first meeting in November. And then the courthouse elevator project, we do have a contract, and the commissioners, you have an updated contract in front of you that contains the schedule for additional charges that was missing from the contract this morning. And for council, the project estimate cost is $1.3 million. Remember in the presentation that was given to you, $850,000 was for the new elevator, and $450,000 was for refurbishing and rehabbing the existing elevator. The contract that the commissioners will consider is for $71,750, or about 5% of the estimated cost of the project. And then as always, and if we do go out to bids for the elevator project, we would expect those bids to be received by the commissioners on December 18th. And as always, in the lower right-hand corner, you have your fund balances for your, so that you can know what you have left in each one of those accounts. Are there any questions on that report?
I don't think so.
That's all I have.
Do we need to approve this then?
Yes, you didn't approve it today.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the AIA document E101? Is that the right one, 2017?
2017. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And then there's 5 or 4 copies here. Mary Ann's got one.
Okay.
On the green tab.
All right.
I
All
think
in-
it's just the
just Jeff.
president.
It's just the president. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, I will get those signed. Bobby, I've got these right here. You're in charge. Thank you.
And you're up.
Okay, and I've got a number of things. Probably they're all covered up with contracts now. Let me dig these out. So the first thing is the Centerstone payments. And so I communicated with Beth and Tony that we actually are going to have a shortfall this year of the money required to pay Centerstone for their services in the mental health, as our mental health center. And that will be a shortfall of $35,934 for this year. And I believe that we will be able to find money to transfer in the next month or so that from other areas in our budget. So we'll get back with you if that's okay with you before probably your December meeting. We'll get it to you sooner than that if we can, but we're moving a lot of projects forward now, so we'll continue to work on that. For next year's budget, the shortfall is $38,884. So the timing apparently was off on the Centerstone issues. And we actually got from the auditor's office today or yesterday, I guess, a letter from Centerstone telling us what those numbers were for next year. And so since the budget can't go up, one option would be to move money around for.
We're gonna do that.
Okay, so you'll cover that later on, but that number is $38,884. We have received an inquiry from Achieva, and I believe you put in your budget a line item for $16,000 for Achieva for their guardianship program, which is matches a grant that comes from the Indiana Supreme Court. If you have that budgeted, then I'll go ahead and send them a letter telling them that it will be in your budget for next year and that they can send us an invoice after the first of the year.
Okay, yeah, we have a,
Right.
Yeah.
Does that meet with your approval?
yes.
Okay. A quick update on the health insurance accounts. As of today, there is a balance of $4,355,410.35. I emailed that to all of you for your information. The other thing that I want to cover tonight, and I'll get through this as quickly as I can, but I think it's important moving forward from here. I need to make sure that the council folks get this. If you could take one and pass it down so council all has one. I really need to walk you through this, so bear with me here for a few minutes as we go through this. Recall, if you will, that ARPA funds have to be contractually committed by the end of December of this year. And so we have added some projects, we've added some expense to other projects. And so this list is merely to illustrate that we have available resources to cover all these projects that we have currently. Exactly how they'll shake out and what resources should go to what project, we'll need to discuss as we go through the next 2.5 months. And obviously, council will need to be involved in this. But what I did with this, and I shared this with the commissioners earlier today, is to put together, to illustrate that we can in fact pay for all of the projects that we have going on at this point. So if you look at a couple of projects at the very top in the left, the emergency communication towers and radios, and not to steal Barry's thunder, but I asked him to give me a specific number of what they were going to present tonight. So that has gone from, initially we allocated $1.5 million. The recommendation that you're going to hear tonight is $3,138,295. That's a deficit of $1,638,000 and change. And so I've listed areas where we could shift dollars around from one account to another to make this work. So one of the biggest is housing infrastructure, which is part of the HELP program. It has an allocation of $1,060,800. That is a project that we would like to continue. However, timing is such that we're not going to get that under contract by the end of the year. So I would recommend one option would be to take that $1,060,800, apply it to the deficit shortfall for the tower radio project. And then when we're ready to launch that next year, we could replace it with Wayne County edit funds. We have well over $3 million in that account. That leaves the deficit shortfall of $577,000. The highway projects under ARPA, in talking with Mike, it looks like one of those projects is not one that we would move forward. It would be a savings of roughly $150,000. If we apply that, that would bring the shortfall to $427,000.
And that project would be?
It's the Wash Bay. Student community engagement and creating places are two of the HELP projects that are listed as being ARPA projects. They actually are intended to be Wayne County edit projects. And so if we move those back to where they were originally intended, Wayne County edit, that would leave another $60,000 to bring the shortfall to $367,000. The courthouse exterior has a surplus of $78,000. That would bring the shortfall to $289,000. And then uncommitted ARPA, we still have $355,000. If we take the $289,000 out of that, it leaves $65,000-ish in uncommitted ARPA, and the communication tower and radio project would be fully funded. The elevator projects, as you just heard Steve mention, the commissioners recommend that we go ahead with bidding the new elevator, which would go between the three main floors. It has an estimated cost of $850,000. We also recommend that we bid as an alternate the refurbishing of the existing elevator, which has an estimate of $450,000. Put that together, and we have a shortfall of $1,300,000. We apply the additional uncommitted ARPA. The shortfall becomes $1,234,000. We have a collaborative general fund line item of $1,050,000, things that we have used ARPA funds to pay for and replaced kept the general fund dollars available. If we moved that into the elevator project, it would leave a shortfall of $184,000. Now, remember that we agreed with you, if you budgeted for the commissioner's restructuring plan, which would add a position and reclassify one other position at a cost over 2 years of roughly $250,000. we still strongly advocate, and I believe you've already budgeted for that, but by including that as an ongoing project, that moves the shortfall up to $434,148. The CUMCAP Development Fund has a balance in excess of $900,000. So using that fund, we would suggest that we can clear that and pay for those two major projects. Everything else, we believe, is fully funded at this point through the ARPA projects. The thing we have to keep our eye on is if a project comes in over budget or under budget, we need to be nimble enough to shift dollars around, and we think that this will allow us to be flexible enough to use some of these dollars in different allocations, and we need to keep that constantly updated between now and the end of the year. So that's our intention. Again, this is we don't have to use these exact numbers and these exact funds to balance everything, but we recommend that we do all these projects that are listed here. And as we find, for example, as we get the bids for the elevator project, as we now hear more from Barry's team about the tower and radio project, we'll have more solid numbers, and we need to be able to talk to each other and shift dollars around in what is mutually agreeable. So this is a starting point, again, to illustrate that we do have the resources to do these projects.
I would just like to add, this is a starting point. The commissioners should not take action on this today. We are discussing it, but it is something we wanted to converse with you about, but this is a starting point.
Obviously, you play a big role in how we determine what projects we're going to fund and where we're going to pay them out of. So the key element here is to make sure that the ARPA funds are all committed.
Gotcha. Thanks for your work on this.
You're welcome. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them. If not, I'm done.
I know you don't have the bids on the elevator yet, but will that take more longer than 25?
It should not, no.
So you get the new one in and refurbish the old one
That's our
in the calendar year.
That's our belief, yes.
And I know Jeff was trying to be brief, but we really feel we need to refurbish the old one so prisoners can be brought in the basement level. And we continue to need to have a large elevator access to the attic. But for the vast majority of transportation is just between 1 and 3.
So our discussion has been that the new elevator would be the public elevator, and the old elevator, once it's refurbished, would be for maintenance and for prisoner transport as they go from the court to the jail and so on. Of course, the old one is right next to the clerk's office. Right, Debbie?
It won't break down on election night.
Any other questions for commissioners? If not, Debbie, you can come and explain your shortfall to us.
Well, first of all, the most important thing is for our county to be able to run an election and it be safe and secure. So there's a few things that have changed in the law that has really caused us to have quite an expense for poll workers, additional poll workers. Because this is a presidential election, we have to have more equipment, so we have to have more people to run that equipment. We have more voters. As of tonight, when I come from across the street, we've had 1,300 absentee voters in the courthouse since last Tuesday. That's pretty close record to what we had in 2008. I wasn't the clerk then, but looking back at the records, those were some of the numbers that Tara gave me. By mail, we've been sending out 1,100 so far as of today, a little over 1,100. So when anyone votes absentee, they have to fill out an envelope. If you voted early, you'll know you have to fill out this envelope and put your ballot in it. So not only is it the cost of those envelopes, but it takes more people to handle the line and so that voters can get through the line and not be upset. So a big part of our shortfall is in poll worker pay. So what I had in my budget, and it's so hard to project what kind of, how many voters you're gonna have or how many people's gonna come in. And if you watch the national news, you see that there's a lot of hatred and a lot of anxiety everywhere else that's broadcasted. So with that being an issue also, we're going to increase security, have an extra officer at the courthouse on election day. So I think I'll be okay with my overtime budget, but my shortfall is in the absentee voter board, which we have to have absentee judges confirm that all the signatures on these envelopes that come back in the mail. Also having to have more workers, poll workers, judges, and clerks at the voting stations, 8 on election day, 4 for early voting. And we'll be doubling up on those numbers on election day, not, through the week. But in my budget, what I had for election workers, we only budgeted 55,000. And in the spring, I have already spent out 41,955. So that's why I'm asking for the funding for absentee voter board, election workers, and then our contractual professional. We only had 50,000 and we've already spent 37,000. So I tried to not overextend what I'm projecting that we may spend, but going by those numbers in the primary, and a lot of voters don't vote in the primary, as you know, they wait until the general election. So it's just an increase in this election because it's a presidential, not just a county election or a municipal small town election. So that's honestly where we are.
Okay, so we have a total of $73,000 that we need to cover. We
This-
have,
This form is marked as a request for transfer, but is this really an additional
it's gonna be, no, it's not an additional appropriation, it's just gonna be something we have to pay from council contingency, I suppose.
So you're gonna transfer the money from your budget to
To
hers?
hers. That was the suggestion.
Assume we have that.
We have, if I'm looking at your spreadsheets and what we've spent, we have a little over 300,000 left in contingency this year, so. Want to?
Probably the simplest way
Leave
to
a
handle
motion, yeah,
And what was the dollar amount? I didn't.
73,000.
Thank you.
it. Have to be transferred to 2 line items or
Three,
more, 3
um,
line items.
Our contingency line item is 33,950. And it's going to 12860, 12950, and 33,200.
I'll make the motion that we transfer from council contingency 33,950 to those 3 funds, 860, 950, and 200 as written.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Filling out this form. Okay, next we have Jeff Plaster.
Hi, everybody. So we are requesting a transfer within the consolidated edit appropriation. And got the line item here. From line 36038, which is an incentive grant to Liberation Labs, which won't be paid out in this year, to 36026, which is the Make My Move program that we discussed way back in April, and we're finally ready to make that transfer, and the city is ready to sign the contract. So that number is $80,973.
Any questions? We've talked about this before, it's just now time to actually transfer the money, so.
It's in February.
Yeah, it's been a while. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. Thank you. Mark, are you doing the health department's appropriation?
Yes. This appropriation of $827,541 is their last half of this year, plus the balance of the budget for this year. This is not a budget appropriation, doesn't have any line items attached to it. You've already done that when you did their budget for '24. This is appropriating the money to fund the health department. What caused this, and I didn't catch it, it was caught when we started the budgets. When council transferred the money from their budget of $500,000, it was done after July 1st. And when we picked up the balances for the health department, it did not include that $500,000. Wayne Hudson called us, told us we had to get an appropriation for '24 to fund that budget, because when it came back from the state, it came back as zero. Now I'm asking to fund that budget for '24 of $827,541.
Are you asking to fund it money-wise? You're just asking for an
An
appropriation?
appropriation, we have the money.
Okay, thank you.
Bobby, was this advertised as a
Yes,
public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll need a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. Does anyone have anything else to, any comments for or against this appropriation?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. So then we just need a motion to appropriate $827,541 for Fund 1159.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none, motion passes. Things squared away before the end of the year, it's a good thing.
Can you pass that down to them for signature, please?
I have one here,
Okay,
looks like you've signed it,
has it been filled out?
yeah,
Okay,
okay.
if you would sign that,
Next
I'd
up,
appreciate it.
Brandon Sanders, Highway, has some good news for us.
Good evening.
Yay.
Hello.
Last week, our Heine Road Bridge project went to letting, and good news is we were just shy of $200,000 less than the engineer's estimate. It has been awarded to Brumbaugh Construction. So tonight, I'm coming to you to ask for a transfer of appropriations to fund our local match to the project. The NDOT funding, so the total bridge is $1.7 million. The NDOT funding that's currently being provided is 1.1, so that leaves the $626,000 of local match that we have to pay before the construction can start. I'm requesting a transfer from 1135-60026, Bridge 712, and transferring that to 135-60028, Bridge 191, which is the Heine Road project, in the amount of $300,000. We do have $344,000 in there currently in the Heine Road project, so that $300,000 that I'm requesting tonight is enough to cover our match. I'm still in contact with NDOT to see if they can provide some additional funding for this project since it came in under the engineer's estimate, but I won't know probably for another couple weeks when they send us the invoice for our match. So $626,000 is the total that we will pay. Hopefully NDOT can provide some funding and then we would pay less accordingly. So, but the $300,000 request would be enough for me to fund the project.
So this is just transfer from one account to another, isn't it? It says it's an appropriation, but it's really just a transfer.
Yes.
Any questions?
Move for approval. Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Tony, we're down to the budget adoption.
Right, one of the things that we talked about earlier tonight is the Centerstone commitment for 2024 is short $35,934. Commissioners are gonna come back later for transfers to fund that. But because we have advertised the budget for 2025, it will be short $38,884. Before we adopt the budget, we want to add that to in the commissioner's budget, to the Centerstone line item. And probably nobody has filled out a transfer sheet on that. Do you have an extra transfer sheet?
Transfer form on that.
2025.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
we
that's
don't.
2025.
Yeah, we don't need to, just,
I can tell you
So,
the account number.
in the 2025 budget,
It's 33,180.
do you guys have that, or can you bring that up?
IT was supposed to have my computer tonight, and I've looked everywhere and I don't see it. So I don't have access to bring it up there.
Your line item is 33,180, and it has 465,000 right now for,
And we need to add 38,884 to that line item.
What was the account number?
Pardon?
What was the account number?
33,180.
So line item 33,180, we need to add 38,884 to that.
Makes it 503,884.
My suggestion would be that we decrease, because we've already advertised, if we add to one, we've got to subtract from another, is to take it out of one-time money in council. That would reduce from 775,000 down to 2,736,116.
Do you want me to go back to my desk, make those changes, and then print the signatures?
We need to do that sometime as far as the,
Well, we have the signatures already for you to sign tonight, but it doesn't.
but aren't the
include
signatures like total amounts? general fund?
Cause we're
Yeah,
just moving and taking
Okay.
away, so
okay,
you're.
I understand.
Same, just that line, that's what has changed.
So, with that, I had one other item, but it looks like we had already taken care of that, supply line for the prosecutors. Office, so, with that being, I think we can adopt the budget. The Department of Local Government Finance may come back to us and say, hey, you have to reduce that. That wouldn't be uncommon, for that to occur. If we do that, we have an option of either de-appropriating money in 2024 or, reducing line items in 2025. Probably what we would do is de-appropriate money in 2024 and leave the budget as it's presented. If we did change a line item, we just talked about the one-time expenditures, as would have 2,736,116. We could reduce that, as well. So the state will get back to us and tell us exactly where we stand, and we can take any appropriate actions at that time. With that being said, the 2025 adopted budget amount is 38,400,432. Is that
Yes, it's for the general fund is what he has on here.
okay? So with that, I would move that we adopt the 2025 budget in the amount of $38,400,432.
What about the other budgets?
We'll do that as well.
But to this motion's only for.
This motion's for the general fund. So we have a motion and a second. Gary seconded. So any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Motion passes.
And then as far as the non-general account or non-general budgets, nothing has changed there. So I would move that we adopt those budgets as well.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on non-general budgets? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. So moved.
Beth, I have this paper, you want me to go ahead and sign mine and pass it on around?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we're gonna turn it over to Mr. Barry Ritter.
My Excel spreadsheet is not as pretty as Steve Higginbotham, but it'll eventually
you
get there with all
You
of
need to add
this.
some color.
I know, it'll get there eventually. So, commissioners, you have a full packet in front of you, and council, you have a financial spreadsheet in front of you.
Can I ask one quick question? Does that, our approval include the WUR budget? Because we have a separate sheet, it looks like, to sign for this also.
Oh, we might need to do it separate.
Need another motion.
Yeah. So you wanna make it?
You wanna do it now?
Let's do that real quick.
Move that we adopt the WUR budget as well.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's fine. So, council, you have a financial spreadsheet in front of you, and this obviously is a night long in coming. But I'd be remiss if I didn't start by thanking the citizens group who originally brought emergency communications as a priority in the health program and the grants. And you heard a lot from Jeff tonight about it being $1.6 billion short. Understand that it's really not $1.6 million short. As I told you a couple of months ago, the $1.5 million was a stab in the dark as to available money in that grant application that went to the state. At that time, not knowing what the problems were to the extent that they existed or what the resolution would be, we really couldn't put a price tag to improving the emergency communications. So the 3.1 approximately 38, yes, 294.29 is where we're at tonight to adequately correct the communications problem. I think two of my team members should be online. You've met Amy Lepore and Dylan Griffith, that are radio experts. And then we had a stakeholder group that we had formulated that Brad Dwinger representing commissioners and Max Smith council, obviously Matthew Keene and Aaron Campbell from the 911 Center, but we also included representation from the volunteer fire departments, Brett Leland from Economy, Andy Oy from Centerville, and Wes Roberts from Fountain City, some of them who are here with us tonight. There has been a lot of work and effort put into this. And from Matthew and Aaron and I's perspective, not taken lightly, spending $3 million of your money to do this. I will say that this will be the largest one-time shot for public safety in Wayne County since I've been here. And I've been in public safety for more years than I care to count. But the effort that's being taken here is significant. And I don't want you to lose sight that while this started out for volunteer fire, this is actually going to have widespread implications for all public safety, police, fire, and EMS, including the city of Richmond, because we're enhancing the state's 800 system in Wayne County, which is a resource that Richmond Police Department has suffered with on the east side of the city. And we believe that the infrastructure and the towers that's going to be built here in Wayne County will cover those deficiencies, as well as the outlying fire departments, police departments, and the sheriff's department. So when you look at this money being spent, it's going to be a benefit to every taxpayer in the county who may need fire memory, as well as visitors. Our plan tonight is just to lay out the dollar amounts as to where we're at. And then Matthew and Aaron and I will be back next Wednesday to appear before commissioners with the formal recommendations for them to award contracts or purchases to the vendors who participated in this. Also with us tonight is Nick from Motorola Solutions. Nick is representing Motorola. Wayne County is in his territory, and I have to praise Motorola and Nick's team for the work that they've done with us over the last several weeks to shave dollars from this project. I don't know that Nick could shave any more. I'm not going to ask him. But if you do have questions,
$2 more.
if you do have questions specific to Motorola as part of this project, Nick is here to address that. And I don't know, Matthew, at this point, if there's anything you want to say, Aaron?
Not really, other than it has been a collaborative effort. We appreciate the stakeholder group with their input. They went over the specifications of the radios and the different, some of the different bids that came in and proposals. And then if approved, their job is just beginning because they'll be some of the ones making the decisions on logistically where things are at in the radio, building the templates and how they'll get to the different talk groups and channels and how they will be utilized. And those are decisions that those in the field using them will need to make, not those of us in dispatch. So this focus group won't end, next week when we make recommendations. Their job is just starting. So, but just to not only is it helping our county public safety, it actually helps state resources as well. And yeah, state police utilizes that same system in our county, and so it's very far-reaching.
Thanks, Matthew. Probably one of the biggest benefits is the opportunity for Wayne County to partner in a public-private partnership in building the towers. Building those structures would be significant, and this number would be significantly more had we had to build towers. But finding that company and their business plan, needing to place 2 towers in the almost exact locations where we needed them, is going to benefit not only public safety, but because that company caters to wireless carriers in those parts of the county. It'll help with your cell phone for those of you in Southwest Wayne County, and also broadband. You'll have the opportunity for broadband to locate there. That company, they have secured a lease in the northeast part of the county with a landowner there. We are currently working on the lease with the county attorney for the property at County Highway. They've completed their site surveys and they'll soon start their soil samples and filing for their certifications with the state and the feds. We're hopeful that construction will begin on both sites yet this year. As a reminder for the radio infrastructure at the tower under Motorola's contract with the state, they were the sole source provider for that company. So I'll draw your attention to the budget worksheet, which is probably what you're interested in the most. You'll leave the rest of the work to Matthew. Motorola's quote for equipping the 2 tower sites and integrating those sites into the Integrated Public Safety Commission's system is $1.7 million. There's $100,162 credit for being a current Motorola customer, bringing their price in at $1,610,600. The equipment shelters, which was part of what we had extracted from Motorola, and the county through my company has bid these out in a subcontractor environment. We did send 3 invitation to quotes to 3 qualified vendors. Didn't hear from one. The other could not do business in Indiana, which left the 3rd vendor, Thermal Bond, and the 2 shelter buildings, the shipping, the crane service, the installation and securing of those concrete buildings at the 2 tower sites, $165,700. The generators and alternative fuel for backup emergency power. Again, we sent 3 invitations to quote. 2 qualified providers responded. And tonight, with Steve's help and with Jeff, that number that's on your page is just about $7,000 higher as we did the analysis. So that will come down, but it'll be right around $79,000. The pagers for the fire department, or for the firefighters, we needed from our inventory 275 of those. The lowest, most responsive vendor for that we'll make a recommendation to commissioners on is a local radio shop here in Richmond, Tech Electronics, $189,337.50. The mobiles and portables, the lowest, most responsive is J&K Communications out of Columbia City, Indiana. In that inventory, what we have proposed is buying 138 single band portables, 48 dual band portables. The single band, $445,448.24 as it stands today. And the dual band, $181,825.04 as it stands today. The mobiles for the fire departments, let me back up. We added the county coroner's office to this inventory count at the last meeting, so it does involve some radios for the coroner's office. But for the mobiles, the purchase, all of the antenna, the installation, all of the connections, the programming, all of those $120,196.12. My company's contract, which was previously included in this, $246,600, which I will say we will come in under budget because we were able to utilize the state's QPA and Motorola being a sole source. We built in only a 5% contingency for the tower and the building and generators, which is $93,000 for a project total of $3,138,294.29. I would encourage you to support that at that amount and improve public safety across Wayne County for the rest of our lifetime. So with that, I'll yield with any questions that you may have.
Barry, how long would you estimate this has been, we've had a shortcoming in our communication system?
I hired on the police department in 1987, and it didn't work then. Gary, you've been on the fire department for more than 30 years.
10 years.
East Wayne County has always been a problem. These two firemen back here, you grew up in this industry?
Yeah. My dad was a firefighter paramedic in the county for about 30 years, and I would hear him talk about it. I mean, he worked for Real Metro and the same issues around here, so it's been a long time coming.
It became a dire issue, I would say, probably 12 years ago when the FCC mandated that the VHF, what they call narrowband, our VHF system. In other words, they cut the frequency in half. So it cut the distance in half and it cut the power in half. And that is when the volunteer fire departments truly suffered because if you talk to anybody that's been on the department longer than that, they'll say, well, gosh, we used to be able to. And that's absolutely true. But due to FCC mandates, we had to do that. I believe it was 12 years ago. I don't have that date in my mind, but that's when it truly became an issue. And then it's just unfortunately degraded ever since.
We'll have some additional charges that are minor in nature as the towers are built and equipped. At this point, neither vendor included. We have to put an ice bridge in between the tower and the building to carry the cabling, concrete work, and then those buildings have to be grounded according to Motorola's R56 standards. So the electricians that do the backup power will ask for a quote from them to just go ahead and put the ground in for that building, which should be minimal. It should be able to be absorbed through that contingency. As I said, I'll be back next week, Commissioners.
In the portable radios, the 138, 48, is that all the needs for all the volunteer fire departments, or is that a rough estimate, or what?
That is what, when we did the inventory, we met with every fire department. And we asked them to tell us, what do you need to function? Because we're not gonna page on VHF. What do you think it would take you for your firefighters to respond? And so some of the departments, the mobiles are minimal because the fire departments are going towards seat count and how many seats do they have in all their apparatuses, and having a portable for each one of those. We started there knowing that we couldn't buy a portable for every seat. We could get reasonably close that if they responded, they were able to communicate. And that's why the number of portables are so much higher. They'd rather have those on the hip than a mobile in the truck. With those numbers, we verified with each of the chiefs. Matthew and Aaron and I have had to trim some of those numbers, but with confidence, they can respond and communicate with dispatch with these numbers.
Thank you.
The other thing, and Ron has left, that we will need to talk about next week is the MOU between the commissioners and the units of government. While the county is using these dollars to pay for these radios are gonna be transferred to fire departments through their legislative body. It will become their property. They'll be responsible for battery replacement, maintenance. They will not belong to the county.
What is the useful life of it? Estimate.
Depends on if you drop it in a dump tank or run over it with a fire truck. Dick?
8 years, 8 to 10 years.
Battery life may not be as much, depending on how it's used.
Barry, did you say at one point in time that we were doing this for all the fire departments because some of them didn't have the funds? And once we put up the new towers and things, that their equipment wouldn't be able to talk to the other end?
Because we're changing band, we're going from
Yes.
VHF to 800. The only way that this project would have been viable, towers have been built and dispatch moved to 800, is to equip those fire departments with the necessary equipment. Otherwise, they'd still be on VHF, and that's not what we're going to utilize. Fire departments across the country are still having chili suppers and breakfast to raise enough money to be supported. And the dollar amounts that we're looking at, these fire departments here would not have the money to be able to buy the pagers, let alone the mobiles and portables.
I just wanted to point that out, you know, for people watching, that we're trying to get this done for everybody. Even if they don't have the funds for it, we as the county are trying to take care of everyone because we do care about everybody that lives here. And I know when my in-laws used to live at Fountain City, it was horrible. You'd have to go outside to get a cell connection. It was terrible. So I'm speaking on behalf of some of those people. I'm glad we're doing this.
The only department that's not migrating over to 800 today is Richmond Fire Department. They have their own VHF system. That agency opted to stay on their own system.
Because the numbers aren't big enough to include Richmond. I was wondering how compatible Richmond will be with the new system.
Part of the reason in these portables being offered in a dual band radio is that volunteer fire departments in Wayne County provide a lot of mutual aid, not only to Richmond, surrounding counties and into Ohio, and they need to be able to communicate with Richmond Fire. And with Richmond Fire choosing to stay on VHF, we needed to ensure that at least at the officer level, they would be able to communicate back if they're serving in a station in Richmond or doing mutual aid.
What about Randolph County with their unique situation? How about communications with Randolph?
They've built an island in and of themselves on the backs of the taxpayers. Nobody can really answer that question.
Even the two-way can't penetrate that island, huh? It's too bad.
Any other questions?
Thank you for your hard work. We appreciate
Thank
to everyone. Thank you.
I think we have to be very thankful for having these ARPA funds available to do this, because there would have had to have been changes at some point. And we would have had to have funded that now, but we would have had to. And so we're truly blessed to be having these funds available to implement this for the safety of all of our people.
I mean, a project like this, you're talking possibly a new tax or getting a bond or something.
Definitely, yeah.
So that's a definitely an upside to the ARPA money.
Has Ron Cross got a copy of this? I'd like for him to have that before me.
He will have.
Good.
Anyone have anything else to report? Looks like we're at the end of our budget cycle. That's always an exciting time.
Any action required, it's not, is it?
Until they bring us the official recommendation.
It's in there.
All right.
Well, I think we need to say a little bit about the budget process, how smooth I think it went this year. Not in great detail, but we went all out, came with a budget that's funded. Dollars that we have, not shell game dollars. Really a good financial position currently in Wayne County.
I think we've been able to work together virtually flawlessly, and that's important, particularly for council and commissioners. Approached this as a team of 10, and I'm very appreciative for how the process has gone. Other elected officials have been very forthcoming and open discussions, and that's a great thing. I think Mark having a year under his belt, the auditor's office has been very supportive in this process, and I think that's a step forward. So I'm very pleased with how we were able to pull together to make this work. And thank you, council, for all of your hard work.
Beth, I do have one committee note to report. WUR is having the tire collection again Saturday, October 26th from 9 to noon out at the Richmond Sanitary Landfill or at the Hagerstown Transfer Station or in Union County at their transfer station. So check it out.
All right, anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Surely there are none opposed, thank you.
Meaty.